sometimes I do a little pre-game introductory scenario type thing. I'm doing that for this time. I'm doing something a little different from what I usually do. I'm going to explain the rules a little later. I'm going to do this first, and this is Napoleon Against Europe, and we'll get a full intro to the game, etc. A little later. But right now I've set up the 100 days scenario. And I'm just going to record a little bit of it. I don't know how sketchy it's going to be, how valuable it is. But this is the setup. It took me a long time to set it up, and I'm still struggling with the rules. This is not an easy... It seems like a fairly simple game, honestly. But a lot of the information is kind of contained on the charts, etc. And that takes a bit of getting used to try to handle. And also... the simplicity actually to the movement and combat for a CDG, and it is a CDG, are really kind of bothering me in the sense of I must be missing something. But I don't think I am. So what I've got is a situation, both sides have their cards dealt out. The English, their goal is, well, for this scenario, it's a two-player game always, unlike his, I don't remember, Nations at Arms is his other, the same designer's other game. So the victory conditions in this are the coalition win if they've conquered France and France does not have an undemoralized army. Well, France has, I think, only one army in this game. No, there's the army of Italy here too. Okay, so they have two armies that I have to beat both of them, basically, in order to win. Or if Napoleon is removed from play. Now, I can find nothing that allows me to remove Napoleon from play in the deck of cards that I have. Unless he's used as a tactical general, I don't think it can be done. The French player has a card, which I'm probably going to play here as my first card. This disgrace, which allows you to remove someone from the game if they lose a battle. If the English had this, they could conceivably remove Napoleon that way. I don't think they have something equivalent, though. Okay, so I'm going to use this because it has one activation, and my movement is going to be, first I suck everything into my army, and I think I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 units, which is what Napoleon can command. I think this special unit doesn't count, but I'm not absolutely certain of this kind of thing. And let's put all these in the Grand Army for now, just so that I can maneuver stuff around a little easier. Okay. My goal is to get to Blucher. So it cost me 1 movement point to suck everything in. Now I can cross. I don't think I can move across this corner here. Most games don't allow that. I don't think it was specified here. We'll see what happens. But I can move 1, 2, or 1, 2. It doesn't make a difference in either case. And then into here, that's 3 movement points. My 4th movement point was to suck everybody in. I could have done a forced march, and I was actually considering doing so instead to pick up units, but that looked like the attrition costs would be too high for that. So now I'm in here with Blucher, and I'm going to try to attack him. Now he has the ability to try to evade, but he also has the possibility, and the fairly high possibility, of Wellington being able to march to the sound of the guns. So I'll come back with that. I just looked up the command rules. Because he's got an army with him, he's allowed to carry double his command rating. And this is Napoleon, who has a command rating of 9, I think. Yep. That blur is so ugly sometimes on the Zoom. In addition, 2 steps of reserve cav, and 3 subordinate generals. Now, what is a step, though? That's a question, because I'm not sure if a unit is 2 steps or if it's 1 step. Yeah, the combat value is the number of steps, so actually I have more. Shit, I probably have too many steps here. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 steps. Okay, so I'm fine. And these are also armies, but I have to be careful because I think the counter-marching, I have to stay within stacking limits. And Blucher may not, Blucher and or Wellington may not be able to combine, to command the combined force. In order to do this, let's get my little thing that I can point with. I don't use tweezers all that much. Kleist is able to bring enough forces. Blucher has, I think, 10 strength points, 10 steps here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Kleist has 4 more, which is within Blucher's command range. So I'm going to bring Kleist along instead of trying to bring Wellington in. Wellington's army would be too big. I could drop some of it off, but that might leave me in an uncomfortable position. So, for Kleist to go forward, he's got a defensive value of 1. That's going to give him a +1 on the die roll for counter-marching. And I don't believe he has any penalties against him. He needs to roll above a 5 or higher. A +1 means it's a 4. So we'll take a shot at that. He does get in there. So we'll bring him. Now, he's going to have to roll for attrition. Which is using the attrition table. He's got 4 steps with him. He might lose a step on a 4 or higher. I could spend this to reduce the chance of step loss. That would give me a -2. I've got +1 for the counter march already, so I think it's a good idea. None of these other effects are in play, I believe. I'm just looking through. Okay, so I'll expend my mobile supply, and that puts me to a net of -1 on here on the attrition table. We roll that, and we make it in just fine. And now we're part of this army. We're going to calculate the combat odds, but I want to talk a little bit about the game itself before, because I don't think you have much context here. There are 6 rounds, maybe 7, in every turn. Turns are a year. Each round is basically the play of 1 card. You can save points from cards. You can use them to do multiple things in a turn. But that just, and it's a pretty standard CDG. You don't have a lot of cards. The coalition starts off with 8 cards in their hand in this scenario. The French have 6. They've already played 1. If I want to do anything, in the rest of the rounds, I need cards. Now, I think you can take 1 point for free if you don't play a card. So if I do run out, I can move Napoleon around at the very least and do some stuff with him. The problem with that is a lot of these cards are combat cards. For example, this one, I will not be playing. It can be useful, but it wouldn't be here. But for example, here I may want to do this taken in flank, which gives me a big bonus in combat. Combat's going to be kind of like some of the old Berg games. You basically calculate the combat odds. That gives you a modifier on the battle chart, and you're going to roll and see how much damage you do to the opponent, and then whether or not you force them to retreat. You can continue doing stuff if you have movement points. I don't have any here. Sound of the Guns, that I probably do not want to play. Well, I can, but I might want to play the Imperial Guards. I might want to do a cuirassier charge, but my resources are pretty limited for the turn as a whole, and I may need those cards for other battles as well. If I win Ligny here, obviously I'm not playing Ligny and Cadabra at the same time, right? But if I win Ligny here, as it were, I still have to keep some cards to deal with Wellington. I'm not quite sure how easy it is for the Allies to win their victory conditions, though. Basically, they have to get to Lyonnais. That's a star. That's required for conquest. They have to knock this army out. Naples doesn't matter. They have to get to Bourbon, or Bordeaux, sorry, and Paris, and I think that's it, by the end of the year. So they need some actions as well, and some of these leaders are not terribly, well, they all look like they have good initiatives: Schwarzburg, Wellington, Blucher. So I should be able to move them fairly easy. It might be a little harder to move somebody like Hohenlohe, who has a 3 rating in terms of how much he moves. And the Russians are pretty much out of this, and that's historically reasonable. So, you know, other than the Spaniards having to advance, and they might just fail, or a possible naval activity to go take Bordeaux, and the Schuans can do that as well. The resources are really limited, but I think the main focus of this is let's get the Waterloo campaign over. Anyway, I'll calculate out the battle odds and be back in a bit. Let's follow the steps. We did the countermarch computation of the odds. Turns out it's 18 to 14. That's going to end up a 1-to-1. We'll go into the specifics, but that sounds pretty reasonable, right? The weirdness in this is there's rounding in the odds. It's not just an attacker versus defender. Level of the battle. I've got at least 22 strength points. Both sides are at least 10. So this is going to be a major battle, which means I'll be using the furthest column, and that'll cause more damage. Okay, the morale is going to be the morale of the most numerous steps in the force. Now, morale is the center number on these units. So, and this reminds me, it's that simple. It's the most numerous, which I don't really like. So the morale of the French is going to be 5, for example. Now, I like games which kind of average that out or find a median point or something like that, or at least allow you to find a median point, because I could conceivably, although I think the armies kind of preclude this, have a few 5s and a few 4s and a lot of 3s. And I have more 5s and 4s total than I have 3s. And theoretically, the French army would not be using the militia as their front line in that case. But, and then over here, we got some Landwehr. But otherwise, it looks like we're 3s. So we got 5 to 3 on morale. What does that mean? The morale is going to influence the aftermath of the battle. So we have to remember that. Okay, combat odds, we've already gotten, that's a 0. Cav superiority, who has the most steps of reserve cav, special cav, and cav generals? This is going to be the French. They have a special cav, they have a reserve cav in here somewhere, over here, so that's 2, 3 steps, and I do not have a cav general. I forgot to grab one. Okay, so that's 3 steps for them. What about for the Prussians? I have no cav. I think I have no cav whatsoever. So that's going to give a +1 to the French. Mark that here. Terrain effects, I don't believe there's any terrain in play here. We just marched in across the clear. There's a lot of terrain, there's a lot of markings on the map, but most of them are just different kind of boundaries. Unless there's like mountains or a river or something, there really isn't going to be a terrain effect. But you can see there's like these dashed lines, and these are political divisions and stuff like that, which it seems like it's going too far in expressing them. in terms of busyness of the map information. Supply check. Both players have to check supply. Crap. I believe we're both actually in supply. It's basically 2 spaces away from a source. This fortress is a source. This fortress is a source. We're both in supply. So we don't have to worry about that. Elite units and special units. If we designate an elite corps to spearhead the assault, we get a +1 to the dice. And in return, though, the first loss is taken by that corps. I can also put special units to give additional dice bonuses. So right now, I've got a +1 dice bonus. And I've got Napoleon, who's a 3, versus Blucher, who's a 1 on defense. Now, I'll be throwing additional leaders in too. I think I'm going to spearhead this with one of my elite corps, the 6th Corps, for the French. The Prussians probably want to spearhead because they're pretty outnumbered here in terms of modifiers. So we're still going to be a +1 for that. The French are not going to throw their guard cav in. They're not using the guard corps for this. So that gets rid of those. Now we worry about the generals. Now, I get to use a tactical general on the attack. I'm going to use Davout here. That gives me 2 more. +1. Yeah. That gives me 2 more. And the Prussians, I'll take 1 off that by using Kleist on defense. So now I'm up to +2 on the French. Now, the risk to using a tactical general is he's going to have to make a survival check at the end of the battle. Okay, and now we look at the combat cards that we want to play. And this is where that resource issue comes into play, because those combat cards have a value that they can use. This is a combat card, but I could also use it to play just for commands, which is what I did here. The French are especially limited here, but remember, I do get free commands if I don't play a card. So I just don't get very many. I think I get 1. The coalition would love to win this battle, but they probably cannot. They have to play their cards first. They're going to play just 1 taken in the flank. This gives a combat bonus of +3, but in order to do it, you need a subordinate general and a roll of 6 or greater. The tactical value of the subordinate's added to the die roll. Well, I'll use Davout here. He gives +2, and then I get an additional +1 because Napoleon kicks butt. So I have +3, and I'm looking for a 6 or more. If I don't get it, I wasted the card. I don't get it. That sucks. Now I look over at the coalition cards and decide, you know, what I might want to play from them. Even this up, I'm going to take some redoubts. That gives me a +1 in defense. No die roll or anything. And I'm going to give Napoleon a stomach ache, and that reduces his value by 1 point. That wipes out the French advantage. So right now, it's at even. So now to actually resolve the battle, each side is going to roll 2 dice and add their modifiers. Actually, I think we don't get that +2. We have to recalculate all the modifiers as just pluses. They're not. It's not plus and minus off different sides. So, except it looks like it is. Yeah. So it's just going to be pluses, so I have to figure out what those values are. Let's try to do that again. So what's my total value here? Okay. So let's see what the French total value is. The French total value, combat odds, no modifier, and that is a plus or minus in both directions. Cav superiority, French are up 1. Terrain effects, no. Supply check, no effect. What confuses me? No. Okay. Elite units, that gave me to 2. General's effect on the battle. That gives me 3. That gives me 2, 3, 4 more. So now I'm at +6 for the French. We'll just keep these here instead. And combat cards did not give me anything. This was my play for the turn. So I'm at +6 over there for the French. Let's take a look at the Prussians. So theirs come to no cav superiority. They put an elite unit in, that's 1. The general, Blucher adds 1, 2. So that puts me to 3. And combat cards put me up to 4. So here I'm getting +4, which seems like less. Like I thought I had a +2 net. Why should I be at 6 and 4? Maybe I'm forgetting something? I don't know. 2, 3, 4, 5. Why am I getting only 5 here? Shit. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the cav. That should drop. I can't think right now. Hold on. Try again with some peace. This is why I shouldn't fucking do these things on video anyway. 2. I don't know where the hell I am anymore. I had to chase my wife out. Taking it into her head that it's okay to make noise at all times. Okay. No combat odds. Cav superiority. That's 1. No terrain. Elite units. That's another 1. General's effects. 2, 4. That gets me to 6. That's where I was. I've already put the -1 in. I don't know what else I need. Over here is 4 what I should be at. I'm at 1, 2. Okay, let's try again. No cav superiority. No supply check. Elite units. 1. 1. Generals. 2. Cards. 1. It's 6 to 4. Whatever. Now, where the fuck am I? Alright, so now I should have 2 different sets of dice, but I don't right now. So here's the French at +6. They get an 11. They're going to do 4+. They win if there's a tie in losses. Not if both people get it. So I should write that down, 4. And now here, we're at +4. They roll a 15. They got a 6C+. A step of cav is eliminated if possible. And they have won the battle, for whatever that matters. All right. So now, what the hell do we do? The tactical value generals, if they roll a 6, they will be thrown in the reserve during the next budget phase if they're not replaced. So let's roll for Davout. He's okay. And Kleist, he's okay. The number is the number of points eliminated. The choice is made by the controlling player. The first loss is done to the elite corps acting as the assault unit. 1. Then the loss on each special unit committed. That was none. And then the majority of losses must be taken from units whose individual morale is equal to the morale of the force, including the lead assault unit. Well, it's not equal to. Okay, so the majority must be taken. So that was 1. There was a cav. So that's 2, 3, Okay, that's half. I got one more that has to be taken from these. There aren't many of these, so that's 4. That kills this core. And now I can take 3 more. I'll take 2 of them off my gendarmes or whatever. And then I've got 1 more. And here's a painful thing. Do I want to lose off the reserve cav, which provides a certain bonus, or do I want to lose off of one of my better elite units? I'll take this. I don't know what the effect is on production, etc., but I don't have to face that in this scenario. On the other side, the Prussians took 4, and they have to take 1 off this, 2, 3, and then I can take a Landwehr. The 2, 3, I have to take 2 off the majority value. Okay. Now I have to do a demoralization test. The morale of the force was a 5, I believe. Why were 4s... I fucked up here. 4s aren't the target. Son of a bitch. Okay, let's do this over again. Okay, I got 6 losses. 1 is off the elite. That's 1. 2. 3. 4. 5, 6. Okay. Because my morale's 5, that's what I have to take losses on. So taking the lead unit wasn't a big deal, the fact that I have elite units there. So let's check again. I have to roll... I use 1 die, and if I roll greater than the morale of the force, which is 5, I have a problem. The tactical value of the general commanding the force, well, that was a 2 because it was reduced. And the difference in losses from the victor. So the difference of losses was 2. That cancels out the leadership. So I'm at a base of 5. There are, I think, no cards which affect demoralization here. So I am not demoralized. That means I don't get pursued. The attacker cannot, the winner cannot be demoralized. And now the loser has to retreat to where he came from, which I believe is Lorraine. And that is the resolution of 1 combat. You can see it's kind of a detailed system, and like Empires in Arms and like EU, you have to balance, and some other games, you have to balance a number of values in your head. And I make it to the point where I can figure out, hey, I want to write these down like I do in EU. Or maybe it's not that big a deal. You know, it feels like it's right at the borderline of what needs to be written. Anyway, things are going back in their boxes, and I guess it's the coalition activation for this turn, for this round. French victory for this one, I didn't mention that. France can't be conquered, and it has to have an undemoralized army. Chances are, with an undemoralized army, I probably won't be conquered, but we don't know for sure. The coalition is going to play the Metternich card. This actually gets removed from the game if you play it as the event. That's what that gold star means, I believe. An enemy card is randomly discarded from their hand, and immediately draw a coalition card and play a card from the coalition hand. So, if the French were holding something important, which they have a few, we get rid of it. And that'll be this one, which is the Genius of Napoleon. Well, that's a good card. That's their guaranteed card. They get that every turn. That's a good card to force them to discard. And now we get a card, and we get to choose, again, what card to play. Allied cards are giving me real trouble here. I have this major campaign, which seems like a great card. I can activate 3 forces, but the problem is Wellington is kind of commanding what he can command, right? 2, 4, 6, 7. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I may, So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I could take part of Wellington's force, and then I could get 14 in here total under Blucher, which probably isn't enough to defeat Napoleon, but I can also I can do other things, but I can do that anyway. I can move Wellington through. Well, that's actually a problem. I can move Blucher 1, 2, 3 and come around that way, or come back, or whatever. I can't suck Wellington's troops in. You can only do that with non-army troops, but I can walk into the army, requisition some forces, and keep moving. And that'll give me, I don't remember where my capital was that I needed to get to, but whatever. And I could bring Schwarzburg in. So now I'm at, like, I can do this with a 2-point movement card. Unfortunately, my 2-point movement card is squares, which is useful against cuirassiers charge. Now, I don't know that the French have that, so I probably will do that, because my other options, the Admiralty card, I may need. There was something I wanted to maybe do a naval invasion of Bordeaux or something. So that seems like I probably want to use that for that. I can't use a 1-point card here. The major campaign is 3 forces. You know, that could be useful, because that can help me move people like Bellegarde and La Romana, but I'd like to smack Napoleon before he gets bigger. Interior lines, I don't know that they don't have a major campaign. I'd like to neutralize it if they do. Uhlans, useful if I win a battle. So I think I'm going to play the squares, and Schwarzenberg can pick up Mack's troops and launch an attack across the river. Unfortunately, there's a penalty for that, but it's with a bridge, so armies have pontoon bridges, I guess. So it's no better than going across the river without the bridge with my pontoon bridges, but I should outnumber it so heavily that I can take advantage of that. I kind of lied a little bit there. Without the major campaign, I have to resolve this battle first. So the Allies have a point that they can use a little later. But it's okay, because I can't march to the sound of the guns across the mountain pass, if I recall correctly. Somewhere it says that. I think I remember it. That's right. Okay. These rules are problematic. Not much worse. I know they've got a terrible reputation. From my point of view, they're not much worse than your average GMT CDG rules. But it's just the layout of these kinds of games. For some reason, they seem to defy a reasonable means of describing them. And I have to say, it's not like other area type games don't hit the same kind of problems. I'm thinking Pax Britannica here, which also is laid out in and I love Victory Games rules in general, but it's laid out in this manner that's fun to read, but not terribly good as a reference. And I just find that area and point-to-point rules, for whatever reason, tend to be more problematic for me to deal with. Anyway, we'll resolve this battle. I'm not going to go into detail in it. Well, actually, we are going to go into detail, because the French are going to try to withdraw. They're going to try to evade combat here. If I have cav superiority, if my initiative is better, I need a 5 or more. And I add nothing else. I don't add my tactical ability. Okay. And if we don't succeed in this, is there a penalty? Doesn't look like there is. All right. So my initiative is not better. Schwarzenberg is better than I am. I do not have cav superiority, so I need a 5 or better to get out of the battle. And if I do, I can just withdraw. I do. Now Schwarzenberg came from back here, I think. Had to go through here to pick up something, maybe. I'm not sure. I think it was through here. 1, 2, 3. So he'll get to move again. Am I able to withdraw through the pass? Yeah, I can withdraw through the pass. So I join Napoleon here. Now, Napoleon's got too many leaders. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He can command all these troops, but he's got too many leaders, so I have to fire someone. Given that I'm on the defensive right now, I'm going to fire Jerome. And he's just in my reserve. I can bring him back at the end of the year. And now I have an extra movement point. Now what I do not have is I do not have a way to get through the pass, I think. Yeah, it would cost me too much to go through the pass. So I've moved him. I can't move him again, I think, in this impulse. Like, I can't spend another point to move him a la Here I Stand type games. I don't remember seeing a specific limitation on that. Like that you can't activate an army again, but common sense seems to dictate that. Well, now Napoleon's been refreshed, and that leads me to a problem. I don't have an easy attack on him. So that was a mistake to attack there. I should have hit Napoleon first. Okay, Strasbourg here. Actually, I entered here. This has a fortress, so I couldn't move further anyway, in any sense of the word. I have to have double the value of the fortress. It is a level 1 fortress, so I'd have to leave 2 steps behind in order to screen it, or I can just siege it at this point. I'm going to start my siege, because if I only mask it with enough to hold the siege initially, I don't get an immediate siege roll. So now I would get a siege 0 marker, which is one of these suckers. And these counters are they don't need a lot of trimming. There's very little excess on the side mounting here, but they pop right out. It's kind of like another company does this, Legion. Some of Legion's games have these really almost pre-popped counters. Okay, so now when I'll be resolving the siege, I roll on the siege table over here, and I get a +0. Now this is this an option? Because you see, if I roll a 0 or 1, I get repulsed. But I'm an army. Citadel. What's a citadel? I don't know. I think those will be the bonus cities, but they're not called that here. And unfortunately, the game does not give a lot of support for explaining what terms are. Let's see. There is a glossary. So far I'm like 0 for 3 in looking things up in it, in terms of there being anything in there. Okay, so my assumption is a citadel is going to be one of those 3 special locations, because there doesn't appear to be any bonus for them. And I roll a die. On a 1, it's not going to be good. On a 6, it is good. You know, do I have to roll this fucking die? If I just mask it, I don't have to roll it. In fact, I can't. It doesn't make sense to me that I'd be forced to take a siege roll. Oh, but I do have a +1 for an army. Okay, so there's no harm for me doing this. A 5, that's stable. There's no effect. The siege continues. And next turn, it'll go up to a +1, and then I'm even at higher bonuses. But I still have to resolve what I want to do here. I think, just because I'm testing out the system, that I'm going to run Blucher through Wellington, 1, 2, 3, and launch an attack on Napoleon here. Napoleon will probably take it because, you know, hey, I'm Napoleon. Figuring out all the effects of the leaders, etc., and Davout with his +3 on defense, and Napoleon's +3, it's pretty potent. But the Prussians have Uxbridge along with them, and the King's German Legion, which adds +2 to them. We end up with a +8 to a +6. We're on a major battle, no modifiers there. The morale of the Prussian army is only 3, which means it's pretty likely to go under. The French, on their defense, and this brings up a question I have for the rules, they play the cuirassier charge. This is going to give them an additional +1. Except the coalition has, and this goes for the Uhlans as well, what's not clear is whether you have to play, oh, they had the squares, they could have negated it. Whether you have to play your combat cards as the attacker ahead of time. So would I have to play squares before the Uhlans come? I don't think that's the reasonable answer, and I think the Uhlans can be played after the battle for a pursuit, just as a matter of whatever. Anyway, this doesn't have a gold star. I'm kind of confused at the gold stars on like squares, you know? You'd think squares would be a pretty regular effect. Of course, they only work once, but they don't cancel out the cuirassiers for the rest of the game. Anyway, the French are going to go up to +1 more. That gives them +9 on the dice. I guess it's exciting to roll dice in front of the camera or something. So the French get a 17. That's going to be 7C. And I can't write all of that down. Whereas +6 for the Prussians is a 13, and that's going to be a 5C. These are going to have to take losses, so we're going to lose, because whenever you use special units, they get knocked first. So we committed, say these, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have to take another one. 7. I have to take 4 of my losses on these guys. So that's 7 for them. The French have to take 5, and one of them is our reserve cavalry. So 1, 2, 3, 4 to make the majority. 5, I'll take one of these kind of crappy infantry corps. Okay. Demoralization. Tactical command, tactical value of the commander is +2. The difference of losses is 2, so that cancels the commander out. There's no pursuit roll, no pursuit card in the French hand right now. So, sounds to me like we have to roll, I believe, less than a 3. A 3 or less, because that's the morale of the Allied force. We roll a 3 or less, so there's no demoralization, so we get to retreat, and we go back here. Now, I'm not sure what the hell the in this scenario, whether or not Liège has been captured, or it was not under siege at the beginning, in which case I couldn't have done my movement, which went bump, 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 but we'll ignore that for now. All right, pieces go back. Leader lost checks, nobody died. We move to the next round, and you know, what we're seeing here is actually a much less detailed combat system than it feels like it should be. It's really all about calculating the odds here. The movement, the combat, all the operational factors to this game feel like they're pretty lightweight, to tell you the truth. There's a fair amount of rules to explain them, but it's not a huge rule book. It gets us to 20 pages, but you know, not tiny print. All right, time for me to take a break. As the French have an undemoralized army, they don't lose. So I want to reinforce Napoleon. Now, unfortunately, these guys are not in a great position to do so. In terms of, if I move here, they can be intercepted by a dire roll. So these guys, on the other hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can do. I'm not going to play a card. I'm just going to shift these forces. Oh, now that weakens the morale of the French army, but that's okay. We'll go over to the coalition turn. The coalition's going to play their major campaign at this point. This allows me to do all my movement first, and in particular, I can move Wellington to go join Blücher. I guess with his army. He's got enough forces, it all fits in Blücher's army, and then we'll launch our attack. Again, I'm not sure of the status of this, but I could do this movement without a problem. The only question is whether or not Liège is owned by the Prussians. So that's 2 of my armies. I needed to use that because otherwise I couldn't combine the English army, although actually I might be able to suck more units in. So 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I could take 2 more with me. I'm going to actually pull this corps in there too. And in doing so, I can mobilize this depot and bring it with me, which could be of some value. I think, I'm not sure. But the other force, I'm going to move Bellegarde, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. Passes cost just 1 extra movement point, yeah. So Bellegarde, who can not command a very large army, is going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 as far as here. That's going to be opening up a siege of this space. So the Allies outrolled the French, and both are taking 6C plus. The plus doesn't matter because they both have it, so they both end up at a tie there. And the attacker loses, therefore. So we'll resolve the effects of that, and I'll come back with it. I don't want to be on camera this much. It just irritates me. No demoralization. The Prussian army pulls back. It's pretty battered at this point, and Napoleon unfortunately lost his guard cav because I had to take a cav loss, and I didn't have anything else I could take it on. And I did it without using it. As a +2 bonus in battle, I could have won the battle had I, well, I could have won it more significantly. Napoleon actually tried to withdraw. He tried to evade from this battle because he didn't really want to fight it there. He wanted to fight maybe across the river or something like that. I don't know. So supply-wise, the Brits own this. So I don't know if they needed to I don't know if they needed to leave their depot back here. They probably did. All right. No, that doesn't help them at all. So from here, the supply rules aren't terribly clear to me. Nothing really is here. So supply, here are your sources: a capital of the nation, a fortress in national territory, or a capital of a minor ally in the case of a fortress. In the case of a fortress, which I'm not sure what that's supposed to fucking mean. But anyway, Holland certainly would serve the capital because it's a fortress. And the supply link is an unbesieged, controlled, or allied fortress, or a fixed depot. Now the fixed depot, anytime during an activation. So I could have dumped that depot here, which is I think what I needed to do in order to be in supply. Or actually, I could have dumped it here, which is even better, because now it's with me. And I was sure if I lost the battle, I would get that. That way I don't just lose that depot to someone else. Now, how bad is that? Well, it's not terrible, I don't think. Nah, I still need to hold Flanders, but there's nothing that's going to hold it for me. So that moves us to the fourth activation. It doesn't look like there's any reasonable way that the French are going to lose this scenario, or in fact not win it. It looks like a pretty damn tough scenario for the coalition to win. Now we can excuse that based on, hey, this is just the introduction to the system or whatever. But you kind of feel like, and maybe I'm missing something major, but you kind of feel like it should be a closer run thing. I mean, Waterloo was a pretty close run thing, and everything collapsed after that, and there doesn't seem to be anything that allows, maybe I'm missing a card here. Here we go. This is what it is, Fortunes of War. This card could remove Napoleon, and that could end the game. But you need that in your hand, and there's no guarantee you're going to have that. Otherwise, I'm not really sure how likely the French are to lose at all. I mean, it looks really, really tough, because I got to demoralize both these armies, keep them demoralized. Hey, how do they recover? We don't know that. A demoralized force at the end of the activation phase suffers an attrition effect. It lasts to the second segment of the conquests phase. What the fuck is that? That's like, unless the general is able to rally. Okay. To attempt to rally, it must be supplied. You must activate, spend 2 movement points, and roll a die. Okay. So basically, even if I demoralize the French army, I would still probably not be able to keep it demoralized. And honestly, with Napoleon in charge, it can just keep running away. You can see it wasn't trivial to do so, but it's not, there's a fair chance that that could happen. And that he could just run from the enemy. He doesn't have to hold Paris. Well, if I'm only holding one of the keys, I believe France can still be forced to surrender. And there's one up here in Lyonnais and one in Paris, and that would be it. Although I gave this up so the French could run up there. But anyway, it really looks tough. But if you have that card and you beat Napoleon in a battle, boom, it's all over, right? So that's kind of silly, but whatever. Napoleon's army diminishing. It's at like 6 steps, I think. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps. Now, the Prussians, those aren't Prussians, are not doing too well themselves. No steps in their army. And the Brits only have 3. I could go smack the Prussians. That might be an interesting action. Alternatively, though, since I just have to keep alive, I'm going to spend my action and I'm going to force march this 5 spaces. Well, at the end of my movement, and I have to declare the forced march before my movement. I get to roll here on the attrition table. There's 2 steps moving. On a 6, there's a chance that I have a problem, except for one thing. It's exclusively French, so I've just upped my army. And I think the Allies have no chance now, although I could screen and send Schwarzenberg across to attack. If he moves to here, he's going to have to screen there as well and probably drop off a supply depot. Alternatively, I can spend an activation to try to finish this siege up and take the city. I'm assuming the Prussians own this, but I don't know for sure. I do. Not the Prussians, the Brits own it. Flanders is part of Holland. Holland's allied, no problem. And I think I can actually chain my supplies through here. I didn't need to leave the depot there. There's no ping. It's difficult to tell, for me at least, the provincial borders. The dotted lines, which are sort of the area borders or zones or whatever they're called in this, jump out more than the solid lines do, and I kind of start seeing those dashed lines and think, oh, that's like an important regional difference as opposed to what I'm used to, which is just solid lines. But the truth is, these solid lines distinguish a provincial territory, which the whole provincial territory of Flanders is part of Holland. So there. Trying to figure out what to do with the Allies. It feels like defeating the armies is going to be a tough task, which means I need to take all of the key zones, which is Bunk, Bunk, and Bunk. If I take those 3, the French are then out of, they won't win at least. So that's one consideration. The problem is I don't have an easy route here through Grenoble. I would have to, I should have headed this way and taken Lyonnaise instead. Live and learn, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a landing in Bordeaux. And in order to do that, I'm playing the Admiralty card. That gives me 3 points. I'll spend 2 of them to move. I'm not playing it for the event. I'm playing it to move 2 of my boats. 1, 2, 3. It actually costs me to sail into port, but I think I load up for free. 4, 5, 6. And do I have to actually sail in? I think I have to actually sail into the port. Yeah. So 7, 8. It actually costs 2 to enter an enemy port, but that gets me these forces here. And now I lay siege to that. Now, I'm not sure with naval transport. No land movement's possible, so I'm not able to spend movement points on the siege itself, but I am able to establish the siege. Now I have 1 more point, which I can't use here because he's 2-point activation, but I could use it over here to try to take this, and that seems like a good idea. And each round of siege that I play, I get, you know, an additional roll. I don't know when these increase, though. These may be increasing. These may be supposed to be increasing even while I'm not paying attention to them, in which case I have to figure out how high they should be. Okay, so I pushed on with these guys, took this city. Now, this is the destroyed fortress marker, which indicates that it's been successfully sieged. But instead of taking that as a loss, I could either detach a loss step or spend a depot and make the fortress mine. However, there's no good way of marking that this is my fortress. Now, perhaps what I'm supposed to use for this is, let me see. I have these little flags. These are to indicate that you added national territory to your thing. And I think maybe the ones that look kind of like it but don't have an N, like this one, can be used to mark, hey, that's my fortress now. Do I want to do that? Well, I don't really need to because I have supply through here. So I'm just going to leave that destroyed and not waste any resources on it. That seems the best. We're running out of time though. This is turn 5. There's only 6 in this scenario unless somebody has a winter campaign type card. So it looks pretty hopeless. There is the possibility of running these through somehow 1, 2, 3, 4 to Paris, but I'd have to drop troops off here in Lille, which won't work. Or I could go 1, 2, and oh look, Napoleon can intercept me there, which he probably would, because he's just that kind of dicky dude. And at the same time, I have to trigger this. And I have to take this city. Paris does not have a fortress, but I'd have to take this city and this city, which I just don't have enough action cards to do that. I only have 2 1s, which can move this and this, that's great. And then a 3, I can do one of these 2, but that's it. And that means this game is over. Rather than continue to play out a hopeless case in what was really an introductory scenario to just kind of get a feel for what the game is, and given how long the video is taken, I'm going to call this one here. But I think it gives you a little bit of an idea of how the system works. It gave me a little bit of an idea of how it works. And I haven't touched the political rules or anything like that, but I have a much better feel so that I can go through the rule book and kind of describe what the rules are when I do my intro, which is what it's all about, really. And I think it served its purpose for that. It plays lighter than I thought it would from reading the rules, but we'll see when we add, everything in, all the diplomacy and everything, because like Europa Universalis, look at all these alliance markers and everything going on here. There's a lot of little pieces that I haven't really nailed down, and when I read the rules and go over them with you, we'll see it better. All right, up it goes.